This supplemental video is specially made for Grade 7 modular distance learners. This is based from English 7 Learners Packet, which was anchored from DepEd Calabarzon's PIVOT 4A. Special thanks to Teacher Karen Fatima G. Gomez of SDO Tayaba City for her expertise in crafting the Learner's Packet. For today's lesson, we will be using the same most essential learning competency that we target last week, and it is to express one's beliefs or convictions based on a material viewed. The enabling competency is to make a stand on the material viewed. In the previous lesson, you learned how to express and stand for your own values and beliefs. In this lesson, you will read an excerpt of a story on how to stand up for what you believe in, despite of differences. First, let us read the Convention on the Human Rights of the Child declared by United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund or UNICEF. It is written here that parents have responsibilities which fulfill and provide for the rights of all the children in the world, including the Philippines. Let us see what are these declarations. The first one is family guidance as children develop. Governments should let families and communities guide their children so that as they grow up, they learn to use their rights in the best way. The more children grow, the less guidance they will need. Second, keeping families together. Children should not be separated from their parents unless they are not being properly looked after. For example, if a parent hurts or does not take care of a child, children whose parents don't live together should stay in contact with both parents unless this might harm the child. Third, responsibility of parents. This means that parents are the main people responsible for bringing up a child. When the child does not have any parents, another adult will have this responsibility and they are called a guardian. Parents and guardian should always consider what is best for the child. Governments should help them. Where a child has both parents, both of them should be responsible for bringing up the child. Fourth, health, water, food, and environment. Children have the right to the best health care possible, clean water to drink, healthy food, and a clean and safe environment to live in. All adults and children should have information about how to stay safe and healthy. For the last one, we have rest, play, culture, and arts. Every child has the right to rest, relax, play, and to take part in cultural and creative activities. As a student, you are already capable of presenting your own views in various platforms like sharing and liking posts on social media. As a result, it is important that you know how to express your views on social concerns and issues. To express your views more clearly, you can use sentence starters, for example, like, I believe this because, I think this is, and I am not sure about this because. When sharing your views with someone, You can respectfully ask questions to each other to explain your ideas and opinions. To help frame questions, sentence starters can be used, so these are the examples. I did not understand what you meant when you said, "Can you rephrase or restate that?" What I heard you say, "I thought," is that correct? Or, "Have you thought of?" Now, let us read the story My Father Goes to Court by Carlos Bulosan. Let us find out how the narrator's father fulfilled his responsibilities to his family. The author, Carlos Bulosan, used his voice to promote human rights through his writings. My Father Goes to Court by Carlos Bulosan. When I was 4, I lived with my mother and brothers and sisters in a small town on the island of Luzon. Father's farm had been destroyed in 1918 by one of our sudden Philippine floods. So several years afterwards, we all lived in the town, though he preferred living in the country. We had as a next-door neighbor a very rich man, whose sons and daughters seldom came out of the house. While we boys and girls played and sung in the sun, his children stayed inside and kept the window closed. His house was so tall that his children could look in the window of our house and watch us played or slept or ate when there was any food in the house to eat. Now, this rich man's servants were always frying and cooking something good, and the aroma of the food was wafted down to us from the windows of the big house. We hung about and took all the wonderful smells of the food into our beings. Sometimes in the morning, our whole family stood outside the windows of the rich man's house and listened to the musical sizzling of thick strips of bacon or ham. I can remember one afternoon when our neighbor's servants roasted 3 chickens. The chickens were young and tender, and the fat that dripped into the burning coals gave off an enchanting odor. We watched the servants turn the beautiful birds and inhaled the heavenly spirit that drifted out to us. Some days, the rich man appeared at a window and glowered down at us. He looked at us one by one as though he were condemning us. We were all healthy because we went out in the sun and bathed in the cool water of the river that flowed from the mountains into the sea. Sometimes, we wrestled with one another in the house before we went to play. We were always in the best of our spirits, and our laughter was contagious. Other neighbors who passed by our house often stopped in our yard and joined us in laughter. As time went on, the rich man's children became thin and anemic, while we grew even more robust and full of life. Our faces were bright and rosy, but theirs were pale and sad. The rich man started to cough at night. Then he coughed day and night. His wife began coughing too. Then the children started to cough one after the other. At night, their coughing sounded like the barking of a herd of seals. We hung outside their windows and listened to them. We wondered what happened. We knew that they were not sick from the lack of nourishment because they were still always frying something delicious to eat. One day, the rich man appeared at a window and stood there a long time. He looked at my sisters, who had grown fat in laughing, then at my brothers, whose arms and legs were like the molave, which is the sturdiest tree in the Philippines. He banged down the window and ran through his house, shutting all the windows. From that day on, the windows of our neighbor's house were always closed. The children did not come out anymore. We could still hear the servants cooking in the kitchen, and no matter how tight the windows were shut, the aroma of the food came to us in the wind and drifted gratuitously into our house. One morning, a policeman from the Presidencia came to our house with a sealed paper. The rich man had filed a complaint against us. Father took me with him when he went to the town clerk and asked him what it was about. He told Father the man claimed that for years we had been stealing the spirit of his wealth and food. When the day came for us to appear in court, Father brushed his old army uniform and borrowed a pair of shoes from one of my brothers. We were the first to arrive. Father sat on a chair at the center of the courtroom. Mother occupied a chair by the door. We children sat on a long bench by the wall. Father kept jumping up from his chair and stabbing the air with his arms, as though we were defending himself before an imaginary jury. The rich man arrived. He had grown old and feeble. His face was scarred with deep lines. With him was his young lawyer. Spectators came in and almost filled the chairs. The judge entered the room and sat on a high chair. We stood in a hurry and then sat down again. After the courtroom preliminaries, the judge looked at Father. "Do you have a lawyer?" he asked. "I don't need any lawyer, Judge," he said. "Proceed," said the judge. The rich man's lawyer jumped up and pointed his finger at Father. "Do you or do you not agree that you have been stealing the spirit of the complainant's wealth and food?" "I do not," Father said. "Do you or do you not agree that while the complainant's servant cooked and fried fat legs of lamb or young chicken breasts, you and your family hung outside his window and inhaled the heavenly spirit of the food?" "I agree," Father said. "Do you or do you not agree that while the complainant and his children grew sickly and tubercular, you and your family became strong of limb and fair in complexion?" "I agree," Father said. "How do you account for that?" Father got up and paced around, scratching his head thoughtfully. Then he said, "I would like to see the children of complaint, Judge." "Bring in the children of the complaint." They came in shyly. The spectators covered their mouths with their hands. They were so amazed to see the children so thin and pale. The children walked silently to a bench and sat down without looking up. They stared at the floor and moved their hands uneasily. Father could not say anything at first. He just stood by his chair and looked at them. Finally, he said, "I should like to cross-examine the complaint." "Proceed." "Do you claim that we stole the spirit of your wealth and became a laughing family while yours became morose and sad?" Father said. "Yes." "Do you claim that we stole the spirit of your food by hanging outside your windows when your servants cook it?" Father said. "Yes." "Then we are going to pay you right now. Father said. He walked over to where we children were sitting on the bench and took my straw hat off my lap and began filling it up with centavo pieces that he took out of his pockets. He went to Mother, who added a fistful of silver coins. My brothers threw in their small change. "May I walk to the room across the hall and stay there for a few minutes, Judge?" Father said. "As you wish." "Thank you," Father said. He strode into the other room with a hat in his hands. It was almost full of coins. The doors of both rooms were wide open. "Are you ready?" Father called. "Proceed," the judge said. The sweet tinkle of the coins carried beautifully in the courtroom. The spectators turned their faces toward the sound with wonder. Father came back and stood before the complaint. "Did you hear it?" he asked. "Hear what?" the man asked. "The spirit of the money when I shook this hat," he asked. "Yes." "Then you are paid," Father said. The rich man opened his mouth to speak and fell to the floor without a sound. The lawyer rushed to his aid. The judge pounded his gavel. "Case dismissed," he said. Father strutted around the courtroom. The judge even came down from his high chair to shake hands with him. "By the way," he whispered, "I had an uncle who died laughing." "You like to hear my family laugh, Judge?" Father asked. "Why not?" "Did you hear that, children?" Father said. "My sisters started it. The rest of us followed them. Soon, the spectators were laughing with us, holding their bellies and bending over the chairs. And the laughter of the judge was the loudest of all." Now, after reading and learning this story all about, it is time to accomplish the different learning tasks intended for today's lesson. For your learning task number 1, let's simply answer the following questions. Write your answer on your paper. Number 1, how is the narrator's family different from the rich man's family? List down at least 3 characteristics. Number 2, why did the rich man complain about the narrator's family? Number 3, how did the narrator's family react to the rich man's complaint? Number 4, how did the narrator's father pay the rich man? And number 5, if you were the narrator's father, would you have done the same thing he did to settle the trial? Explain your answer. For your learning task number 2, using the pyramid organizer, analyze the ending of the story by supplying the needed information. Write your answers on your paper. So here is your pyramid organizer. So you're going to write your response to the outcome of the story on the upper part of the pyramid organizer. Then, on the next, you're going to write the pros and cons of the story's ending. And the last one is you're going to identify the 3 events that led to the story's resolution. For your learning task number 3, let us explore more about the story's theme. Look at the illustration and answer the questions that follow. You're going to write your answers on your paper. Number 1, what does the illustration suggest? Number 2, how is it related to the story? Number 3, who among the characters in the story best symbolizes this picture? Why? Number 4, what Filipino beliefs or value can help address this issue and why? And number 5, as a student, how can you help make a change in this kind of situation? For your learning task number 4, on a short bond paper, you're going to draw your preferred cover illustration of the story that you have read. Then you're going to explain in a short paragraph with at least 5 sentences as to why you believe that this best illustrates the whole idea of the story. You may use any medium for your output and be guided by the following criteria or rubric. So we have here content for the knowledge of the story, design for the color and layout, presentation if it is neat and presentable, message or the paragraph content, and the mechanics. So something about the spelling and the grammar. So for these tasks, you will be having 50 points. So to sum this up, the lesson has shown how parents fulfill their responsibilities to their families, particularly to their children, as well as other Filipino values that go along with such responsibilities. Because no family has the same principles. Their ideas of responsibilities towards raising children differ from one another. But the bottom line of the story is there should always be genuine happiness. Because if there is happiness inside your heart and within your family, as you fulfill responsibilities, no amount of hardship, poverty, judgments, and any other negativities in life could ever bring you down. For your assessment, you're going to complete the table below. You're going to write your answer on your paper. So you're going to copy the given table. So on the first column, it is written there, which of the two families of the story do you want to belong to? So you're going to choose between the rich man's family or the narrator's father. Okay? And then you're going to state 5 reasons why you choose that particular family. As a part of your reflection, on your paper, you're going to write your insights about this lesson using the prompts given. So, I have learned that, I would like to know more about, and I enjoyed. Congratulations! You had already finished our lesson for today entitled Making a Stand in Relation to One's Responsibilities. Thank you for listening. See you again. Bye!